The Galactic Science Council's chamber erupted in barely contained laughter. 300 of the most prestigious scientists from across known space watched the holographic display with a mixture of amusement and second-hand embarrassment. The presentation showed humanity's latest attempt at dimensional engineering, a vessel they called the Nexus Voyager. Observe, Chief Scientific Administrator XRA addressed the assembly, her crystalline form shimmering with barely suppressed mirth. The humans have attempted to create what they call a seventh-dimensional drive. Using. She paused for dramatic effect, quantum mechanics and gravitational manipulation. More laughter rippled through the chamber. Even the typically stoic hive-mind representatives of the Cthid collective vibrated their neural nodes in their species equivalent of chuckling. Dr. Sarah Chen, Earth's representative to the Council, stood motionless at the podium. Her weathered face remained impassive as she watched her life's work being ridiculed by beings who considered themselves the pinnacle of technological achievement. 20 years of research, countless breakthroughs, and the combined efforts of Earth's finest minds, all dismissed as primitive fumbling. Humans, XRA continued, her voice dripping with condescension, still believe that dimensional travel requires physical manipulation of spacetime. As though higher dimensions were simply layers to be peeled back like their primitive onion vegetables. In the back of the chamber, representatives from the Altarian Dominion exchanged knowing looks. Their species had mastered true dimensional travel millennia ago, using pure consciousness manipulation and psychic resonance. The very idea of using mechanical means to traverse higher dimensions seemed absurdly crude to them. If I may, Sarah's voice cut through the amusement, quiet but firm. Our research suggests that mechanical intervention in dimensional boundaries is not only possible but potentially more stable than pure consciousness-based methods. The laughter died down, replaced by pitying looks. Administrator XRA's crystalline form pulsed with gentle light, the equivalent of a patronizing smile. Dr. Chen, we appreciate Earth's enthusiasm. But your species has barely mastered four-dimensional calculation. The very idea that you could comprehend, let alone manipulate, the seventh dimension is impossible. Sarah finished, raising an eyebrow. Like how faster-than-light travel was impossible. Or how human consciousness was too primitive to achieve instantaneous communication. An uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber. Humanity's rapid technological advancement had indeed surprised the galactic community several times over the past century. Still, this was different. Dimensional engineering was the domain of species with at least 1,000 years of faster-than-light civilization behind them. We have reviewed your submission, XRA stated formally. The Galactic Science Council finds that Project Nexus Voyager does not meet the safety requirements for dimensional experimentation. Your request for recognition and testing privileges in Council space is denied. Sarah gathered her presentation materials with deliberate calm. Thank you for your time, she said, her voice steady. We will proceed with our testing independently. Alarmed murmurs spread through the chamber. Independent testing of dimensional technology was technically legal, but heavily discouraged. The risks of dimensional destabilization were considered too high. You cannot be serious, XRA's crystalline form flashed with concern. Unauthorized dimensional experiments could tear apart the fabric of spacetime itself. Sarah paused at the chamber's exit. Administrator, with all due respect, humanity has a long history of being told what we cannot do. She turned, meeting XRA's gaze. It's becoming quite a tedious pattern. Back on Earth, in the hidden facility deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Project Nexus Voyager continued unabated. While the Galactic Council laughed, human scientists worked in shifts around the clock, refining their understanding of dimensional mechanics in ways the other species had never considered. They had discovered something the others had missed in their rush to transcend physical reality. The seventh dimension wasn't just another layer to breach, but a fundamental framework that connected all the others. The aliens had been so focused on ascending beyond physical reality that they'd never considered the possibility of using physical means to manipulate higher dimensions. Dr. James Rodriguez, Sarah's chief engineer, studied the latest test results with growing excitement. "They think we're trying to punch through dimensions like they do," he said, not looking up from his data tablet. "They haven't realized we're trying to weave them together instead." Sarah walked through the massive chamber housing the Nexus Voyager. The vessel looked deceptively simple, a spherical core surrounded by concentric rings of what appeared to be ordinary metal. But each ring was composed of carefully engineered quantum-entangled particles, arranged in patterns that mimicked the natural dimensional boundaries they had discovered. "How long until we're ready?" she asked, running her hand along one of the outer rings. 2 weeks, James replied. "The final calibrations are nearly complete. Though without council authorization. We proceed as planned," Sarah cut him off. "Humanity didn't wait for permission to reach for the stars. We won't wait for permission to reach for the dimensions either." What the council didn't know, what Sarah hadn't included in her presentation, was that the Nexus Voyager wasn't just an experiment. It was already a success. The prototype had already demonstrated stable dimensional manipulation in small-scale tests. The public demonstration they were planning would force the galaxy to recognize what humanity had achieved. As she stared up at the vessel that represented humanity's latest leap forward, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Let them laugh. In 2 weeks, they would learn what every other force in history had eventually learned about humanity: underestimating us was always their first, and often their last, mistake. The Nexus Voyager's control room hummed with activity as holographic displays showed streams of data from the latest series of tests. Dr. Maya Patel, the project's theoretical physics lead, manipulated complex equations in mid-air with practiced gestures. The mathematical models floating before her represented something the Galactic Council had deemed impossible: a unified theory of dimensional mechanics that didn't rely on consciousness manipulation. "They've been watching us," Sarah announced, entering the control room. The assembled scientists looked up from their work. 3 Alterian observation vessels dropped out of FTL at the edge of our solar system this morning. James snorted, not looking up from his calibrations. "Of course they have. Can't resist seeing the primitives fail spectacularly, can they?" "They're not here to watch us fail," Maya interjected, collapsing her equation field. "They're here because they're scared. Look at this." She expanded a new holographic display showing energy readings from the alien ships. "They're running active dimensional scanners at full power. They're trying to figure out what we're doing." Sarah studied the readings with a grim smile. The alien scanners would tell them nothing. The Nexus Voyager's true nature was hidden behind layers of what would appear to be crude mechanical systems. It was humanity's greatest deception, and it had worked perfectly. The truth was elegantly simple. While alien civilizations had spent millennia trying to transcend physical reality to access higher dimensions, humanity had asked a different question entirely. What if the higher dimensions weren't separate from physical reality at all? What if they were fundamental properties of it, as basic as length, width, and height? "Show me the latest test results," Sarah requested. Maya gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show recordings from their most recent breakthrough. The footage showed a small probe, no larger than a coffee cup, surrounded by a scaled-down version of the Nexus Voyager's ring system. As the test began, the rings didn't try to tear open dimensional barriers or project consciousness into higher planes. Instead, they simply resonated with dimensional frequencies that were already present. "It's like they've spent thousands of years trying to break down doors," Maya explained, "when all we needed to do was realize the doors don't exist. The dimensions are already here, woven into every particle of physical reality." The probe in the recording began to shimmer, not with the violent dimensional ruptures the aliens used, but with a gentle iridescence. For a brief moment, it existed in multiple dimensional states simultaneously, as natural as water flowing downhill. "Final calibrations are complete," James announced. "We're ready for full-scale testing whenever you give the word, Sarah." Sarah walked to the massive observation window overlooking the Nexus Voyager's main chamber. The vessel's rings were still, but she knew they were humming with potential energy, ready to demonstrate humanity's greatest scientific achievement. They think we're trying to force our way into higher dimensions, she mused. They never considered that we might simply learn to dance with them instead. A junior technician rushed into the control room, tablet in hand. Dr. Chen. We're picking up transmissions from the Alterian vessels. They're requesting permission to send observers to the facility. The Nexus Voyager's control room hummed with activity as holographic displays showed streams of data from the latest series of tests. Dr. Maya Patel, the project's theoretical physics lead, manipulated complex equations in mid-air with practiced gestures. The mathematical models floating before her represented something the Galactic Council had deemed impossible, a unified theory of dimensional mechanics that didn't rely on consciousness manipulation. They've been watching us, Sarah announced, entering the control room. The assembled scientists looked up from their work. 3 Alterian observation vessels dropped out of FTL at the edge of our solar system this morning. James snorted, not looking up from his calibrations. Of course they have. Can't resist seeing the primitives fail spectacularly, can they? They're not here to watch us fail, Maya interjected, collapsing her equation field. They're here because they're scared. Look at this. She expanded a new holographic display showing energy readings from the alien ships. They're running active dimensional scanners at full power. They're trying to figure out what we're doing. Sarah studied the readings with a grim smile. The alien scanners would tell them nothing. The Nexus Voyager's true nature was hidden behind layers of what would appear to be crude mechanical systems. It was humanity's greatest deception, and it had worked perfectly. The truth was elegantly simple: while alien civilizations had spent millennia trying to transcend physical reality to access higher dimensions, humanity had asked a different question entirely. What if the higher dimensions weren't separate from physical reality at all? What if they were fundamental properties of it, as basic as length, width, and height? Show me the latest test results, Sarah requested. Maya gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show recordings from their most recent breakthrough. The footage showed a small probe, no larger than a coffee cup, surrounded by a scaled-down version of the Nexus Voyager's ring system. As the test began, the rings didn't try to tear open dimensional barriers or project consciousness into higher planes. Instead, they simply resonated with dimensional frequencies that were already present. It's like they've spent thousands of years trying to break down doors, Maya explained, when all we needed to do was realize the doors don't exist. The dimensions are already here, woven into every particle of physical reality. The probe in the recording began to shimmer, not with the violent dimensional ruptures the aliens used, but with a gentle iridescence. For a brief moment, it existed in multiple dimensional states simultaneously, as natural as water flowing downhill. Final calibrations are complete, James announced. We're ready for full-scale testing whenever you give the word, Sarah. Sarah walked to the massive observation window overlooking the Nexus Voyager's main chamber. The vessel's rings were still, but she knew they were humming with potential energy, ready to demonstrate humanity's greatest scientific achievement. They think we're trying to force our way into higher dimensions, she mused. They never considered that we might simply learn to dance with them instead. A junior technician rushed into the control room, tablet in hand. Dr. Chen. We're picking up transmissions from the Alterian vessels. They're requesting permission to send observers to the facility. The room fell silent. This was unprecedented. The Alterians were one of the most reclusive species in known space, proud of their dimensional mastery and dismissive of lesser civilizations. Well, Sarah smiled, isn't that interesting? Tell them. She paused, remembering the council's laughter. Tell them we'll be happy to accommodate their request. After our first full-scale test. Sarah, Maya warned, if we activate the Nexus Voyager with them watching, they'll know everything. All our theories, our methods, everything we've kept hidden. Good, Sarah replied firmly. Let them see. Let them all see. Humanity is tired of being underestimated. She turned to face her team. Prepare for full activation. We test in 48 hours. Deep in the facility's quantum computing core, trillions of calculations ran simultaneously, refining the dimensional resonance patterns. The Nexus Voyager's rings began to move, almost imperceptibly, finding their optimal positions. Humanity's greatest achievement was about to change the galaxy's understanding of dimensional physics forever. What the watching aliens couldn't understand, was that humanity's primitive approach had led to something far more profound than mere dimensional travel. By treating higher dimensions as natural parts of physical reality, they hadn't just found a new way to traverse them. They had discovered how to harmonize with them. As the facility prepared for the test that would shock the galaxy, Sarah thought about all the times humanity had been dismissed, underestimated, laughed at. Soon, very soon, the laughter would stop. Not because humanity would prove their superiority, but because they would show the galaxy a completely new way of seeing reality itself. The day of the test arrived with an unexpected audience. Not just the Alterian observers, but representatives from 12 other advanced civilizations had rushed to the Sol system, their ships hanging in high orbit like glittering jewels against the black of space. The Galactic Council, despite its earlier dismissal, had sent an emergency observation team led by Administrator XRA herself. In the Nexus Voyager's main chamber, final preparations were underway. The vessel's rings had begun their preliminary alignment, moving with glacial precision as quantum entanglement fields synchronized across multiple dimensional planes. To the alien observers watching from the reinforced observation deck, it must have looked absurdly primitive, like watching cave dwellers try to build a starship. "They still think we're going to try to punch through," Maya whispered to Sarah, monitoring the dimensional harmonics. "The Alterians are practically vibrating with anxiety. They're expecting a catastrophic dimensional rupture." Sarah nodded, watching the aliens through the control room's one-way glass. Administrator XRA's crystalline form pulsed with rapid colors, a sign of extreme agitation in her species. The other observers weren't much calmer. Only the Cthid collective representatives maintained their usual stoic demeanor, their neural nodes pulsing slowly as they recorded everything. "All systems are nominal," James reported from his station. "Ring synchronization at 97% and climbing. Quantum field stability holding at optimal levels." He paused, looking up at Sarah. "It's time." Sarah took a deep breath, then pressed the facility-wide communication button. "Attention all personnel and observers. Phase 1 activation beginning in 3 minutes. Please ensure all safety protocols are in place." The chamber's massive lights dimmed, leaving only the soft blue glow of the Nexus Voyager's energy field. The rings had nearly reached perfect alignment, their movements now too subtle for the naked eye to detect. But the readings showed what was really happening. They were beginning to resonate with the dimensional fabric of reality itself. 1 minute to activation, James announced. The tension in the control room was palpable. Everything they'd worked for, everything they'd hidden from the galaxy, was about to be revealed. 30 seconds. In the observation deck, the alien delegates pressed closer to the windows. Some had deployed advanced scanning equipment, eager to document what they assumed would be either a spectacular failure or a dangerous dimensional incident. 10 seconds. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of all the scientists throughout human history who had been laughed at, dismissed, told their ideas were impossible. "Begin Phase 1 activation," she ordered. The Nexus Voyager's rings didn't tear into higher dimensions like alien technology did. They didn't force consciousness into elevated states of being. Instead, they began to sing. There was no other word for it. A harmonic resonance that started at the quantum level and rippled outward through every dimension simultaneously. "By the eternal void," one of the Alterian observers whispered, their translator barely catching the words. "What are they doing?" The vessel began to shimmer, not with the violent energy of dimensional rupture, but with the gentle iridescence they had seen in their small-scale tests. It was as if reality itself was beginning to dance around the ship, dimensions flowing and weaving together in patterns that the alien sensors couldn't even begin to comprehend. Phase 1 stable, James reported, his voice steady despite the excitement. All harmonics within predicted parameters. Beginning Phase 2. This was the moment of truth. Phase 2 would demonstrate what the Nexus Voyager could really do. The ring's resonance deepened, and suddenly the ship wasn't just interacting with dimensional fabric, it was becoming one with it. In the observation deck, scanning equipment began to malfunction. The aliens' dimensional sensors, designed to detect tears and ruptures, were useless against what they were witnessing. The Nexus Voyager wasn't breaking through dimensions, it was flowing between them as naturally as water flows between connected pools. Impossible, Administrator XRA's crystalline form flashed with intense colors. Their dimensional signature, it's perfect. But they're not using any consciousness manipulation at all. Phase 2 stable, James announced. Ready for final activation on your mark, Dr. Chen. Sarah stepped forward, addressing the observation deck directly through the communication system. What you're about to witness isn't impossible, Administrator. It's simply a different way of thinking about reality. We didn't try to transcend physical existence to reach higher dimensions. We learned to work with them instead. She nodded to James. Begin final activation. The Nexus Voyager's resonance reached its peak, and reality seemed to hold its breath. For a moment, the ship existed in all dimensions simultaneously, not forcing its way between them but harmonizing with them all at once. Then, with a ripple of light that somehow moved in directions the eye couldn't follow, it demonstrated its true purpose. The vessel didn't tear through space-time. It didn't project itself into higher planes of existence. Instead, it revealed what humanity had discovered, that all dimensions were already connected, already one. The Nexus Voyager simply allowed them to see it, to work with it, to travel through reality's true nature. In the observation deck, the alien delegates stood in stunned silence. Their most fundamental understanding of dimensional physics had just been upended by a species they had dismissed as primitives. And this was only the beginning. The week following the Nexus Voyager's demonstration transformed the scientific community of the galaxy. The Galactic Science Council chamber, once filled with laughter at humanity's primitive attempts, now buzzed with intense debate and theoretical discussions. Holographic displays showed endless replays of the test, as the greatest minds of 1,000 species tried to comprehend what they had witnessed. Administrator XRA stood before the assembly, her crystalline form subdued. The implications of the human dimensional harmonics theory are significant, she admitted, each word seeming to cost her. Their approach challenges everything we thought we knew about dimensional travel. In the chamber's center, Sarah Chen stood with quiet confidence, surrounded by holographic representations of the Nexus Voyager's operating principles. The data had been freely shared, another surprise from the humans that had shocked the galactic community. You're giving away your dimensional technology, a Helleron physicist had asked in disbelief. Just sharing it? Knowledge belongs to everyone, Sarah replied simply. Besides, understanding the principles doesn't mean you can replicate the technology overnight. We're happy to collaborate, but it took us decades to develop the practical applications. The CTHID Collective's representatives had been the first to truly grasp the elegance of humanity's solution. Their hive-mind approach to problem-solving helped them see the pattern that others had missed. The humans have not conquered the dimensions, the CTHID speaker announced, neural nodes pulsing thoughtfully. They have befriended them. While we sought to master reality, they chose to understand it. The Alterian delegation, traditionally the leaders in dimensional science, had withdrawn into deep meditation for 3 days after the demonstration. When they emerged, their spokesperson addressed the council with unprecedented humility. For 10,000 years, we have approached dimensional travel as a matter of will imposing itself upon reality, the Alterian said. We saw the physical universe as a barrier to be transcended. The humans saw it as a dance partner. In the depths of the Pacific facility, the Nexus Voyager continued its test program. Alien scientists worked alongside humans now, learning to see dimensions not as separate layers of reality, but as intricate patterns in a single, unified fabric. Some took to it quickly, their own unique perspectives adding new insights to the human approach. Others struggled, centuries of established theory making it difficult to adapt. It's like teaching someone to swim who's spent their whole life trying to tunnel through water, Maya explained to a group of bewildered alien physicists. She manipulated the holographic models, showing how dimensional harmonics naturally flowed through normal spacetime. You don't need to fight against reality. You just need to work with it. The implications extended far beyond travel technology. Medical researchers discovered that dimensional harmonics could be used to observe and treat conditions that existed across multiple planes of reality. Archaeologists realized they could use harmonic resonance to study the dimensional echoes of ancient sites. Even the arts were transformed, as artists began incorporating true dimensional flow into their works. But not everyone welcomed the paradigm shift. Some of the older spacefaring races, particularly those who had built their entire civilizations around consciousness-based dimensional manipulation, saw humanity's discovery as a threat to their way of life. This is more than just a new technology, an ancient K'ril sage warned the Council. This is a fundamental challenge to how we view our place in the universe. If physical reality is not something to transcend, but something to harmonize with, what does that mean for species who have spent millennia trying to escape it? Sarah understood their concerns, but she also saw the opportunity. We're not saying your methods are wrong, she addressed the Council. We're saying there's more than one way to dance with reality. Imagine what we could achieve by combining our approaches. The implications of her words rippled through the assembly. The possibility of merging consciousness-based dimensional manipulation with harmonic resonance technology opened up theoretical horizons that no one had even imagined before. James, monitoring the latest tests from the control room, smiled as he watched alien and human scientists working together, barriers of species and ideology falling away in the face of shared discovery. You know what the really funny thing is, he said to Sarah. We never would have discovered this if they hadn't been so convinced it was impossible. Human stubbornness at its finest, Sarah agreed. Tell us something's impossible, and we'll find a way to do it, usually by completely reimagining the problem. The Nexus Voyager hung in its chamber, rings slowly turning, its gentle dimensional resonance a constant reminder that the universe was stranger and more beautiful than anyone had imagined. And humanity, the primitive newcomers who had dared to think differently, had opened the door to a whole new way of seeing reality itself. 1 year after the Nexus Voyager's historic demonstration, the face of galactic civilization had begun to transform. The massive dimensional research complex that had grown around the original Pacific facility now hosted scientists from over 300 species. The facility itself had expanded into multiple dimensions, parts of it existing in spaces that the old understanding of physics couldn't have comprehended. Sarah walked through one of the new hybrid research labs, where traditional alien consciousness manipulation technology merged seamlessly with human dimensional harmonics. A young Alterian researcher floated in a meditation chamber, their consciousness extended into higher dimensions, while human-designed resonance rings helped stabilize and guide their exploration. The breakthrough came this morning, Dr. Kira Patel, Maya's daughter and now head of the Hybrid Technology Division, reported excitedly. The Alterians can now maintain conscious dimensional projection twice as long with half the mental strain. And the data quality is unprecedented. The integration of human and alien approaches had yielded results that neither side could have achieved alone. Where once the species of the galaxy had sought to either force their way through dimensions or transcend them entirely, they now worked in harmony with the fundamental fabric of reality itself. The Cthid Collective has proposed something interesting, James said, joining them. Age had whitened his hair, but his eyes still sparkled with the same enthusiasm. They want to adapt our harmonic technology to work with their hive mind network. Imagine it, an entire species resonating with dimensional frequencies simultaneously. In orbit above Earth, the first of the new hybrid ships was nearing completion. Unlike the experimental Nexus Voyager, these vessels represented the true fusion of galactic science. They combined the Altarians' mastery of consciousness manipulation, the Cthides' hive-mind coordination capabilities, and humanity's dimensional harmonic technology into something entirely new. Administrator XRA is requesting permission to address the facility, a young technician announced. Sarah nodded, and the crystalline form of the former skeptic materialized in a holographic projection. A year had changed XRA as much as it had changed the galaxy. Her once rigid scientific worldview had evolved into something more flexible, more open to possibilities. The Galactic Science Council has reached a unanimous decision, XRA announced, her crystalline form pulsing with formal colors. In recognition of humanity's contribution to dimensional science and their commitment to sharing knowledge, Earth will host the first Dimensional Harmony Academy. All species, regardless of their technological development, will be welcome to learn both traditional and harmonic approaches to dimensional interaction. The announcement sent ripples of excitement through the facility. This wasn't just recognition of humanity's achievement, it was a fundamental shift in how the galaxy approached scientific advancement. The old hierarchy of advanced and primitive species was giving way to something new, a recognition that different perspectives, different approaches, could all contribute to understanding the universe. There's something else, XRA continued, her form shifting to less formal colors. We've detected dimensional harmonics we can't explain in deep space. They're similar to the Nexus Voyager's resonance pattern, but older. Much older. Sarah felt a familiar thrill of discovery. Natural dimensional harmonics? Possibly, XRA confirmed. If your theory about dimensions being naturally interconnected is correct, there might be places in the universe where this happens without technological intervention. The Council is proposing a joint expedition to investigate. The implications were staggering. If natural dimensional harmonics existed, it could revolutionize their understanding yet again. More importantly, it validated humanity's basic intuition, that working with nature, rather than trying to overcome it, could lead to the greatest discoveries. Maya, who had been quietly working at a nearby console, looked up with a smile. You know what this means? Everything we've discovered so far, it might just be the beginning. Sarah gazed out at the dimensional research complex, where humans and aliens worked side by side, each bringing their own unique perspectives to the greatest scientific endeavor in galactic history. The Nexus Voyager stood in its chamber, no longer a controversial experiment but a symbol of what could be achieved when different approaches came together. The universe is stranger and more wonderful than any of us imagined, she said, watching as another hybrid ship began its test sequence, its rings moving in perfect harmony with the dimensional flows of reality. And we're finally learning to see it as it truly is, not as something to conquer or transcend, but as something to understand and explore together. In the depths of space, ancient dimensional harmonics continued their eternal dance, waiting to be discovered by species who had finally learned to listen to the music of reality itself. Humanity's primitive approach had not just changed dimensional science, it had opened the door to a whole new way of exploring the universe. And somewhere in the vast expanse of spacetime, in dimensions beyond normal perception, the universe itself seemed to hum in approval as its children finally began to understand the true nature of its dance.